Good morning. This is the Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session. It is Monday, December 4th, 2023. It is 9:02 a.m. This session is set to go until 11 a.m. This is a hybrid meeting. We're at 3000 Pacific Avenue Southeast, room 110 for public virtual attendance. You may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board, Vice Chair Ty Menser in the boardroom, as well as Commissioner Wayne Fournier. And joining me via Zoom, we have Commissioner Gary Edwards, as well as Commissioner Emily Klaus. And we have Assistant County Manager Rob Gelder, as well as staff from Community Planning and Economic Development, Ashley Wright, as well as Andrew DeFobis. And this is, I think I've lost count. Are we at 9 or 10 now?
Nine.
This is the 9th work session for the Shoreline Master Plan update briefing. Feels like 10. I thought maybe we were at lucky number 10. So, passing this on to Ashley.
Well, I think we'll toss it to Josh first, and then we'll go from there.
Oh, sorry, Josh, I did not see you.
That's okay, no worries. So thank you. I am Joshua Cummings, the Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. Just wanted to take this moment at our 9th meeting to set the stage for the commissioners, including our new commissioners, and appreciate them coming up to speed fast on this important issue. This is another one of those big items that we're getting the train back on the track, and we'll provide some overview detail, but a lot of work has gone into this, and wanted to provide our appreciation to the Planning Commission led by Chair Casino, and the outreach to the community that built this program. The SMP that's before you balances the strategic initiatives number 6 and number 7 within our Thurston County Strategic Plan, which is development in the right places and protection of the natural environment, both 6 and 7. So this is a huge deal, and the work that went into this, I think, is really effective in trying to strike that balance. It also will provide consistency and efficiency in the permitting process. So a lot of times we have our code competing with each other, and so the commissioners will hear frustration from applicants. How come this applies here but doesn't apply there? That's one of these situations where we're trying to bring those two things into alignment to reduce that confusion. And understanding expectations, even if and when the board decides to put this on your docket for consideration and approval, the next step after that is it goes to ecology for a review of a period about a year, hopefully less if we can help it. And so your permitting group, Brett's Development Services, won't have an opportunity to actually enact those consistencies and efficiencies until ecology approves what we've provided to them. And so the whole goal is to have the Board of County Commissioners start that ecology review clock as soon as possible, so that down the road, Brett and the Development Services team can implement these efficiencies and consistencies in our code. So just know that this is the next huge step and another piece of the process that we hope to get moving as quickly as possible. And the work that the board has put into this, as Chair Mejia raised, at least 2-hour sessions, 9 of them over the past few months since the recommendation from the Planning Commission. This is big. This is big for our community, and it achieves a lot of things in a lot of different ways. So Andy is here to field any questions. There isn't a ton more that we have to provide after 9 2-hour sessions, but want to make sure that the floor is open to the commissioners to have a conversation on this important topic.
Madam Chair, could I be recognized?
Go ahead.
I thought it would be worth just getting us all on the same page. I actually suggested we keep, and we finished the policy level decisions last session, and I sort of suggested that we keep these last 2 just so there'd be an opportunity for whatever questions, but mainly when we see the nuts and bolts of the, if we have questions about how the policy decisions we made translate into the words on the page that will go to ecology, we have an opportunity to ask those questions before we wanted to vote on the 12th. So we have another session. I haven't seen that draft, so it may be that we don't need this session at all. It was my idea, and I only wanted to have it if it was after. Remember, I was asking, like, when are we gonna get that so we can have at least one session between getting the actual draft and having to make a vote to send it to ecology. And I'm just throwing this out here because I know our time's all precious, and this was my idea, and we may not need it because we may have next week, and hopefully we'll see a draft that's specific between now and then.
Sure.
Go for it.
Good morning, Commissioners, County Managers, Andy DeFobis, Senior Planner with Community Planning. So all the changes that the board has requested over those 9 work sessions have been formalized in the draft. So the Commissioners will see that draft early this week. I'm just waiting on the map to get finished. It should be finished very soon, and then we'll send that all out as a package. If the board wants hard copies, we can do that as well. So really today, the goal was just to kind of give you an overview of how those, the changes that got put in the document, give you some information on next steps that Josh already alluded to, and then have it be an opportunity for any questions at this time, recognizing that you don't have the draft yet, so it probably won't be a 2-hour session.
Yeah, okay, I'm not trying to shut anyone's
Sure.
questions down, but I just wanted to lay that groundwork because I was the one that, because we were talking about eliminating today's session. And I said, well, let's just keep it in case we have the draft and then we could ask some questions. So maybe that's gonna happen next Monday at 9 rather than today.
Sure. You almost had it. It got finished about noon on Friday. It's just
Okay.
a little too
Very good, no, I
late,
understood.
so-
You warned us that it was gonna be down to the wire for today.
Yeah, so, okay. I can just give a little bit of background and we can talk about it a little bit if that's all right. So for the public, the reason we're all here is that the county is updating its Shoreline Master Program, or the SMP for short, as required by state law. This project includes both comprehensive and periodic updates that have happened in state law since the 1990 SMP was adopted. The SMP regulates development and redevelopment in the county's shoreline areas, which are generally under the Shoreline Master Program, shorelines means Puget Sound, large streams and large lakes, and associated critical areas. So as I mentioned, the latest draft will be sent to the board this week, both a clean copy and a strike-through version. So you can see all the changes. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and just kind of share what the start of that looks like. So it includes all the changes that the board has requested since the public hearing in May. We're still finalizing that shoreline environment designations map. Still finalizing the map, but then you'll see the draft. So it's got today's date on it. The first page provides some context for the board and for the public. It describes kind of where we're at with the board's review, the anticipated date the board may vote on the SMP, which pending any discussion from the board, we're assuming is next week. And then also next steps once it's been submitted to ecology. So this document will list out on this first page all the sections that have changed since the board's public hearing draft. And so if you go to those corresponding sections in the document, you'll see changes in strike through and underline. The changes made since the board's public hearing draft reflect the outcome of all the work sessions you've had and generally include changes to shoreline buffers and related changes in the document, changes to shoreline jurisdiction, such as the recent flood of record and floodplain changes, additions of some language regarding an advisory committee for tracking no net loss, a filled out acknowledgement section in the first few pages of the document, and just some general cleanup. It also includes minor amendments that resulted from the prosecuting attorney's office review of the document, changes that increase clarity or specificity in the document for staff and public, and how it applies. We will be back next Monday for another briefing once you've had some time to look at this draft to answer any specific questions you have. But we're also here today to answer any kind of policy level questions or dive into anything you want to look at. The draft is here, it's just not been delivered to you yet. And then looking ahead, we're hoping to return to the board for a vote next week, pending discussion by the board. And then once adopted, the SMP package will be submitted to ecology. And we're anticipating that would likely be around mid-January if that vote does happen next week. And you vote for it. From my understanding of ecology's review process, they will then hold their internal review with staff and managers. They will solicit public feedback and go out for public comment. They will likely do a public hearing, so we'll have more information about that in the future. And then they'll consult with the county on all the feedback that they've received. Ecology will then craft its conditional approval and send that back to the Board of County Commissioners, which will include a list of any required or recommended changes to be implemented before final adoption to ensure that that document is consistent with state law and the policies of the Shoreline Management Act. The board will then work with staff to incorporate any of those changes and perform final adoption via ordinance sometime next year, as soon as we can facilitate that. And then once ecology approves that formal final SMP, that is when it will ultimately take effect. So that's the introduction I have. Happy to answer any questions or look at anything you'd like to.
Curious, will the,
Thank you.
if you know, will the feedback we get from ecology be in the same form we got the first time around, where they say, you've got to change this, and here's some things we suggest you change? Is that how they're gonna kind of structure it, or will they
Yes.
do something different?
Yeah, their feedback looks like required changes and recommended changes. So the informal review that they did on the planning commission recommendation was kind of patterned off of that. And we had to kind of dance around the wording of it because they weren't yet ecology required and recommended changes. They were likely indicated required changes or likely helpful items, or I forget how exactly we
Right, right.
worded it. But yeah, that was the informal review of staff and their expectation of, you know, what sort of comments the whole process would potentially bring up.
Were there some kind of changes with ecology where those likely changes became required changes in the process of this?
So far, we've had just the one round, and essentially staff kind of informally telegraphing what we were likely to hear later in the process. So it kind of came back as, here's a group of things that if you don't make these changes, these are likely to be required changes. And another group of things that are, these would be helpful, these may come back as recommended changes. But, you know, I was just dealing with one person on the staff level, and she was doing her best to kind of represent what the formal feedback from ecology might be. But, you know, it's gonna go out to public comment, it's gonna go to a whole team of folks to review, so kind of hard to predict all the potential things that might come up. But anything that she could see at that time that she said, oh, this would likely come back as required, that was telegraphed to county staff, and the board addressed those items in the draft that went to public hearing back in May. So
One
it
by
should
one.
be in
Yeah,
pretty good
that's
shape.
right.
I
One by
mean,
one.
it was a
Yes.
very lengthy list,
Yeah.
because a lot of them were just really technical and
Yeah.
minor, and we went through them one by one, and unless we saw a really compelling reason to not, we pretty much went with that, because we want to get this through ecology and improve, so we pretty much adopted for the most part those suggestions, except for very small couple that we thought, you know, we didn't agree or whatever.
Has there been a lot of public comment through the process? Has there?
Yeah. Yeah, this has been going on for several years.
Yeah.
So the planning commission worked on this document over a period of about 5 years, and they had 81 work sessions. And throughout that time, we had a lot of citizens who were engaged and would come and speak during those planning commission meetings. Earlier versions of the draft had, you know, several hundred comments, and then when we relaunched the planning commission's public hearing draft back in 2021, we got another 300 written comments. We had a lot of folks show up to the hearing. The board, I think, got somewhere around 100 or so written comments when it got to this body. So there's been quite a bit of feedback over the years.
Wow.
And I just,
Commissioner, you see that binder beside you? Half of that is public comment.
Plus, we went through, I mean, it's worth noting that we took some, we even dived into some shoreline designation issues where groups of citizens, you know, tried to they all made pretty good cases, frankly, that, you know, the shoreline designation that was given to their area. You know, it's like, what can you do in a designation? But there was also a process of redesignating. So it was like this multi-layer process, you know, so, you know, somebody might have said, oh, I like all the rules you have for the designations, but I'm in the wrong designation. That was like a parcel by parcel. So we didn't go too far there, but there were a couple groups that kind of stood out, and we took those up one by one as well, so.
and just to build a little bit on Andy's front loading, so we worked really hard with ecology to answer your question, Commissioner Fournier. Ecology relayed position, and what they relayed was either consistent with their rules or inconsistent or recommended. And that's really what the board chewed on really hard over the last 8 sessions or so. And what I'd say is that they worked really hard to find that balance back to the beginning of development and preservation of the natural environment. And it's 68 issues that they went through, and they took a conversation on each and every single one of them. And then, as was said, engaged with individual property owners as well. So the goal was to front load as much as possible all this work so that we, on the back end, when we do give it to ecology, that their review is a little bit shorter. So we'll see how that plays out, because they're a state agency, but we did our best to try and do all the work up front.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, that could have all come, if you guys hadn't have done that, that could have all been work we're doing
Yeah.
after.
It could have gone back and forth
And
for the
we
next
could
2
have
or
been-
3 years.
Yeah, that's good, I didn't really thought about that. Should help us.
Hopefully, yeah.
Excellent.
Any question? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, just to put a pin on that. I think the draft that is currently, the draft that we have produced, that the county is ready to submit to ecology is as best as we can get it before this process. I think a lot of that work was front-loaded, and I'm a lot more confident in this version of the draft, passing muster and having a shorter list of changes at the end of the process. But we will see, because there is a public process yet to play out.
And one of the questions that Commissioner Edwards sometimes asks is how did we do in terms of pushing ecology? And our perspective is we worked really hard with ecology for them to get creative on some things that they hadn't addressed before. Some of the non-conforming uses and the grandfathering discussion, aquaculture, a lot of different things that we brought up with ecology that did push the envelope. And so I just, again, this is me, I can't help but express gratitude that your staff and the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners has really pushed a state agency to think creatively about how we locally in Thurston County designate our shorelines. So just have that, and it's not a feather in your cap yet, but I think it's one in process that really has shown creativity and dedication to our community. So we'll see what ecology says, but to answer Commissioner Edwards' question before he asks it, yeah, we have pushed ecology and think it's a pretty good document that we're about to provide if possible.
Thank you. Any questions from the folks online?
Well, Gary did just turn his mute off, so.
Commissioner Edwards, go ahead, sir.
I just don't think it's fair that Josh can read my mind. No questions. Looking forward to seeing the draft. Good explanations, and Ty pretty much covered my issues that I had. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Any additional questions from anyone? Comments? Okay, well,
So to wrap up, then there is an AIS, so we'll be, as we look at doing agenda review tomorrow, we'll talk about it again and kind of looking to next week on the 12th. And then sometime this week, is there a guesstimate of when the board might see the?
Let me get a clarification. So I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. The Word strike-through document is completed, but the maps are not?
Yeah, so the map is part of the package.
Right.
And so once that map is complete, we can send the whole thing out. I'm meeting with our GIS staff today, so
Okay.
I'm hoping for an update on that. If that map is gonna come down to the wire, I can go ahead and send the text early.
Yeah, so is the GIS person a function of the not having that staff person with the transition?
That's certainly part of it. Yeah, we're relying on geodata pretty heavily, and they're really have been stepping up and doing a lot for us in this time before we refill that position that we have, so.
So that's a question. If words are what you're looking for in terms of the strike-through,
Words are what I'm looking for personally, but the fact that I don't have it now, we're pretty much gummed up for the next 48 hours with budget hearing after budget hearing. So I'd say at this point, I'm not gonna be looking at it before Wednesday-ish anyway. So there's no reason to, from my perspective, there's no reason to give me separate it and give me the words today. I would have looked at it over the weekend. I can look at it later in the week, but yeah, it's not gonna happen in the next couple of days.
I think we'll shoot for a deadline of Wednesday, 5 o'clock.
Okay.
And if we don't have it by then, the whole package, I think we will.
Then do that,
Separate.
yeah, that would make sense.
And I'll have an update today, so we'll know where we stand later this afternoon. So.
perfect. That works. And I'm on the same page as Commissioner Munster. I'll need some time to review that and go through it. Hopefully with the maps, but if not, then just the Word version is fine. Okay, it is 9:21, so we're adjourned. Thank you.